Preface. Ethereal Hollywood is a world reconfigured from the golden age of Hollywood, where the legendary stars are not just memories, but immortal archetypes, still living in their own parallel alternative reality. Familiar history is not duplicated but flexible and constantly revisioning itself along diverse pathways. Time and space are also more fluid and less binding. And what has been called magic works in odd and unusual ways, producing scenarios from the silly to the surreal. And since these stories are in an alternative world or dimension, there are variances from real-world facts, such as the relationship between characters, studios, events. This is a fluid world where history flows in unexpected directions. These are audiobooks with imagery synced to the narrative as much as possible, serving as quasi-storyboards to give a rough visual dimension to the stories. Book 11 of the Ethereal Hollywood series. Dimensional Anomaly. By Arnold Kalnitsky. The screen door slammed behind her, letting in a burst of dusty heat. She wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of a calloused hand, leaving a smudge of engine grease near her temple. Her coveralls hung loose, stained with oil and what might have been last week's coffee. Outside, the desert stretched empty under a flat, white sky. She crouched beside the old pickup's open hood, prodding at frayed wires. The engine coughed once, a dry, rattling sound, then fell silent again. No radio out here, just wind hissing through cracked window glass and the buzz of flies near a discarded oil can. She didn't curse, didn't sigh, just pulled a wrench from her hip pocket. A faint tremor ran through the ground. Pebbles skittered near her boots. She paused, wrench hovering over a rusted bolt. The horizon blurred, like heat rising off asphalt. But it wasn't heat. Colors bled into the sky, deep violets and golds she'd never seen outside a dime store postcard. The wrench clattered onto the dirt as she stood. The desert air thickened, tasting suddenly sweet, like gardenias left too long in a sunlit room. A low hum vibrated in her teeth. Then, impossibly, a flicker of neon cut through the haze far ahead, a cursive sign she couldn't quite read, glowing against the gathering dusk. The horizon dissolved entirely. Where bleached scrubland met sky, a shimmering cityscape bloomed, towering Art Deco spires catching eternal twilight, streets paved in liquid obsidian reflecting impossible lights. The faint, syncopated thrum of a distant jazz band pulsed through the ground beneath her boots. Gravity felt looser, like stepping onto a slow-moving carousel. A sleek, chrome and cream cord convertible materialized silently on the spectral highway stretching towards her. Behind the wheel sat a figure impossibly sharp in a double-breasted suit, a fedora tilted low. His smile was a slash of white teeth against tan skin. "Need a lift, sister?" His voice was smooth bourbon poured over honeyed gravel. "Looks like you took a wrong turn off reality." She stared, grease-smudged and dusty, at the impossible glamour radiating from him. Her worn boot nudged the fallen wrench. The desert wind still tugged at her hair, gritty and real, while the scent of expensive cologne drifted past. "Reality," she rasped, her own voice harsh against the music, "seems a bit flexible today." Her eyes narrowed, scanning the apparition. "Who's asking?" The man chuckled, a low, warm sound. "Call me Nick," he said, tapping gloved fingers on the steering wheel. "And you, doll, just stepped onto the silver screen highway." He gestured towards the shimmering city. "That's Ethereal Hollywood, where the legends live, and where lost souls sometimes wander in." His gaze flicked over her battered truck. "That heap won't make the journey. My cord will." Doubt warred with a desperate curiosity inside her. The hum vibrated deeper in her bones now, syncopated with distant trumpet notes. She saw flickering images overlaying the cityscape. Ginger Rogers swirling in white chiffon, Fred Astaire tapping effortlessly down a marble staircase. "Legends," she echoed, tasting the sweet ozone air. "What's the price of the ride?" Nick's smile widened fractionally. Always a price, he murmured, adjusting his hat brim. Let's call it a favor. Later. He leaned across, opening the passenger door. The chrome handle gleamed impossibly bright. Come on, sister. Sunset Boulevard awaits. And trust me, his voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, you don't want to be out here when the credits roll. The engine purred, a sound deeper and smoother than anything her truck ever dreamed of making. She hesitated only a heartbeat longer, the gritty desert wind whipping her hair across her face, contrasting sharply with the Cord's polished elegance and Nick's unsettling charm. The wrench lay forgotten in the dust. With a final glance back at the dead truck, a relic of her stubbornly real world, she slid onto the plush cream leather seat. It was impossibly soft, smelling faintly of pipe smoke and old money. The door clicked shut with a solid, expensive finality. The Cord surged forward silently, tires whispering over the obsidian black highway. The shimmering city grew impossibly larger, its Art Deco towers piercing the perpetual twilight sky. Music swelled, clarinets weaving through the bass line, seeming to emanate from the very air. She saw fleeting glimpses. Jean Harlow laughing on a balcony draped in velvet, Clark Gable tipping his hat from a passing trolley car. The air tasted richer now, layered with perfume, cigar smoke, and the electric tang of old studio lights. Reality felt thin, stretched taut over something impossibly grand and strange. So, Nick drawled, navigating the sleek curves effortlessly. What's your name, doll? Can't call you Grease Monkey forever. He glanced sideways, his eyes sharp beneath the fedora brim. And what brings a tough little wrench-turner like you to the doorstep of forever? The question hung in the air, underscored by the pulsing jazz beat vibrating up through the floorboards. Ahead, colossal gates wrought from swirling platinum announced their arrival, Ethereal Hollywood. Something flickered behind Nick's easy smile, a watchfulness, a hint of calculation. Her simple desert life felt galaxies away. She leaned back, fingers tracing the Cord's cool chrome trim. Callie, she said, the name feeling too blunt against the city's shimmering decadence. Callie Curtis. She kept her gaze fixed on passing wonders. Dolores Del Rio shimmering in a gown of liquid silver, waving from a pearl-white terrace, Rudolph Valentino dueling shadows with a rapier in a moonlit courtyard. Didn't bring myself, she added, her voice hardening slightly. That desert tremor, it shoved me here. The scent of gardenias intensified near a colossal fountain spraying iridescent mist. Who collects favors in a place like this? Nick chuckled, steering onto Sunset Boulevard. Neon signs blazed impossible slogans. Trouble brewing, see it now. And, Marlene's Midnight Martini, let the night begin. Oh, honey, he purred, nodding towards a looming deco tower shaped like a stylized lion's head, its eyes glowing amber searchlights. That's Louis B's joint. Mayor runs the studio system here. Everyone owes someone. His gloved hand gestured vaguely upwards. My associates occasionally need a problem solved discreetly. Someone who understands how real things work. He paused meaningfully. Someone unexpected. The Cord slowed before a bustling sidewalk cafe under striped awnings. Gloria Swanson sipped espresso while William Powell traded witty barbs with Groucho Marx nearby. Nick cut the engine. The sudden silence was thick, filled only by clinking china and distant laughter. Your favor. Nick's voice was low, intimate. Be ready when they call. He nodded towards a narrow alley choked with velvet shadows beside the cafe. Head down there. Ask for May. Tell her Nick sent you. His smile didn't reach his eyes this time. She'll get you sorted, for now. Callie stepped onto the pavement, the chrome door whispering shut behind her. The court dissolved into the traffic like smoke. She was alone, surrounded by impossible glamour, the scent of espresso and danger sharp in her nose, and the wrench's comforting weight of phantom memory on her hip. She took a breath and walked towards the shadows. The alley swallowed daylight whole. Velvet darkness pressed close, smelling of damp stone and spilled perfume. Phosphorescent stars glimmered faintly overhead, casting weak light on peeling posters advertising forgotten films. The Phantom's Kiss. Screamed one, featuring Garbo's smudged, desperate eyes. Callie's boots echoed too loudly. A bead of sweat traced a path through the grease on her temple. May, Nick had said. She rounded a corner piled with discarded film reels. Ahead, under a single buzzing bulb, sat a woman draped in ostrich feathers. Her lips were a slash of crimson, her gaze ancient and weary. Mae West didn't look up from filing her nails with an emery board. Well, her voice was husky honey, thick with amusement. Nick's stray kitten. Lost your mittens. Callie stopped, the alley's chill seeping into her bones. Mae finally lifted her eyes. They assessed Callie's grease-stained coveralls, the desert grit still clinging to her boots. A slow, knowing smile curved her painted mouth. Real-world grime, she murmured, leaning back. How quaint. She snapped her fingers. A shimmering screen flickered to life beside her, showing flickering newsreel footage. Callie's truck abandoned in the desert, a lone speck under the vast sky. They know you're here, sugar, Mae stated flatly. The newsreel cut abruptly to Mayor's Lion Head Tower, searchlights sweeping like hungry eyes. Studio security. They don't like gatecrashers. Mae tossed the emery board aside. Nick owes Mayor big. You're his interest payment. Callie's stomach dropped. The distant jazz felt suddenly menacing. The favor wasn't a favor, it was bait. A sharp crack echoed down the alleyway. Plaster dust showered from the wall beside Callie's head. The stink of cordite cut through the perfume. Mae vanished in a swirl of feathers and smoke. Run, kitten. Her disembodied voice hissed urgently. Footsteps pounded on wet cobblestones behind her, heavy, deliberate. The searchlights from Mayor's Tower swung wildly overhead, freezing Callie in their harsh, amber glare. She saw them then. Figures clad in severe black suits, faces obscured by shifting static, moving with unnatural silence. Their outstretched hands crackled with sickly violet energy. One word, cold and metallic, sliced through the alley's gloom: containment. Callie didn't hesitate. She plunged deeper into the velvet darkness, the thunder of her own heart drowning out the distant trumpet's wail. She burst into a sudden, garish glare of sound and light. A crowded backlot stretched before her, a dizzying patchwork of half-built Egyptian temples, Wild West saloons, and Parisian street corners. Extras in mismatched costumes jostled past, trailing sequins and cigar smoke. A director screamed into a megaphone beside a papier-mâché volcano spewing glitter. Callie shoved through the chaos, ducking beneath a swinging prop zeppelin. Glancing back, she saw the static-faced men emerge from the alley entrance, their movements unnervingly fluid, parting the crowd like sharks through shallow water. They didn't run. They didn't need to. Their gaze locked onto her with terrifying precision. She spotted a gap between a fake Egyptian obelisk and a plywood speakeasy facade. Escape. Now. The gap led to a cavernous soundstage shrouded in gloom. Towering racks held dusty props. Suits of armor, chandeliers draped in sheets, the sound swallowed by the cavernous emptiness. Distant shouts echoed from the backlot, muffled. She pressed herself against a rack draped in fur coats, breathing hard. The scent of mothballs choked her. Footsteps approached the soundstage doors, slow, deliberate taps echoing like gunshots on the concrete floor. Violet light flickered under the doorframe. They were checking systematically. Trapped. Her eyes scanned the darkness desperately. High above, catwalks crisscrossed beneath unseen rafters. A forgotten rope ladder dangled just out of reach near a pile of rolled Persian carpets. Could she climb? Could she be silent? The door handle rattled. A hand clamped over Callie's mouth. Warm leather and spice. She jerked violently, stifling a cry. Easy, sister, breathed a familiar voice. Nyx, but stripped of its easy charm, taut with urgency. He pulled her deeper into the shadowed racks, behind a towering stack of dusty film canisters labeled, Valentino's Last Tango, Reel 7. His face was pale, hat gone, a thin line of sweat tracing his temple. May tipped me off, he whispered, eyes glued to the door as it began to groan open. Mayor wants you erased. Studio policy for anomalies. He shoved a small, cold metal disc into her hand. It hummed faintly. This'll jam their signal, briefly. He gave her a hard shove towards the dangling rope ladder. Climb. Find Irving Thalberg's old office, top floor of the Lion Tower. He owed me. The soundstage doors swung wide, bathing the dusty props in lurid violet light. Nick stepped boldly into the beam, drawing a sleek chrome pistol from his jacket. All right, boys, he called out, his voice echoing defiantly. Let's see how you handle a scene stealer. Gunfire erupted, sharp and deafening in the confined space. Callie scrambled for the rope. Her hands burned on the coarse fibers, the ladder swaying wildly as she hauled herself upward. Below, chaos exploded. Nick darted between props like a phantom, his chrome pistol spitting sparks that ricocheted off the static-faced men's shields. Their energy blasts hissed through the air, vaporizing a rack of feathered headdresses, filling the air with the acrid tang of burnt plumage. Callie climbed faster, breath ragged, the metal disc clutched tight in her fist. Shouts echoed, studio security converging. She reached the catwalk, its rusted metal grating shivering under her boots. The gunfire paused. She looked down. Nick was cornered against a giant papier-mâché sphinx, breathing hard, a thin trail of crimson leaking from his sleeve onto the pristine white linen. One of the static men leveled its crackling hand. Nick met Callie's gaze for a split second, a flicker of grim apology, then pure defiance. He raised his pistol again. Callie turned and ran. The catwalk zigzagged through choking darkness, punctuated only by distant emergency lights casting long, skeletal shadows. The deafening echoes of the battle faded behind her, replaced by the metallic groan of the walkway and the frantic hammering of her own heart. The Lion Tower loomed ahead, its amber searchlights sweeping the lot like prison spotlights. Thalberg's office. Mayor's domain. Trusting Nick felt like insanity now, but the cold disc pulsed in her grip, her only lifeline. Below, sirens wailed, a different pitch, sharper, angrier. Mayor's security was mobilizing. She spotted a narrow access hatch where the catwalk met the tower's sheer obsidian flank. Rusted bolts protested as she wrenched it open, revealing a suffocatingly dark service shaft smelling of stale wiring and dust. She squeezed inside just as a searchlight beam sliced across the hatchway. Silence pressed in. Only the hum of the disc and the phantom scent of desert dust lingered. The shaft ascended vertically, ladder rungs slick with grime. Callie climbed blindly, guided only by the disc's faint glow reflecting off damp concrete walls. Distant vibrations hummed through the metal, the muffled chaos of the studio, the heavy throb of Mayer's power. Higher. The air grew colder. Finally, a faint rectangle of light appeared above. The access hatch to Thalberg's sanctum. As she reached for the latch, a low, resonant hum vibrated through the shaft, deeper than the disc, colder. It felt like the tower itself was waking. Below, far below, she heard the distinct, chilling sound of heavy boots landing on the catwalk grating. They were coming. The chase wasn't over, it was ascending. She pushed the hatch open, tumbling into the dim, forgotten stillness of Irving Thalberg's tomb-like office. A single shaft of twilight piercing the blinds. Time had frozen here. Piles of yellowed scripts leaned precariously against mahogany walls. A marble bust of Garbo gazed sadly from a corner. Thick velvet drapes choked the windows, muffling the city's hum. The disc pulsed brighter in her palm, casting sharp shadows across an immense desk littered with crystal paperweights and a single, ivory telephone. No, Mayor. Just dust and silence. Callie scanned frantically. What had Nick meant? He owed me. Her eyes snagged on a framed photograph beside a bronze lion statuette. Thalberg, young and intense, shaking hands with a grinning Nick, decades younger, but unmistakable. Behind them, half hidden in shadow, stood Mae West, her expression unreadable. Trust was a frayed thread. She rifled through desk drawers. Fountain pens, blank contracts, a silver flask. Nothing useful. Then her fingers brushed cold metal beneath a stack of faded fan mail. A key. Small, intricate, humming with the same frequency as the disc. A heavy thud echoed against the office door, once, twice. Wood splintered around the lock. The static men wouldn't be slowed by mahogany. Callie jammed the key into a nearly invisible slot beneath the lion statuette's plinth. It clicked. The entire bookshelf beside her slid soundlessly aside, revealing a narrow elevator cage, its brass gates tarnished green. Inside, a single button glowed. Down. Not up. Not out. Deeper. She lunged inside just as the office door exploded inward in a shower of splinters and violet energy. The static men filled the doorway, their featureless faces turning towards her. Callie slammed the brass gate shut. Their crackling hands reached out as the elevator dropped with stomach-lurching speed, plunging her into utter blackness. The last thing she saw was Mayer's lion head insignia etched onto the elevator ceiling, its amber eyes seeming to glow in the dark. The descent felt eternal, the cage shuddering violently. Cold air whipped past, carrying a scent she couldn't place. Damp earth, crushed violets, and something metallic, like old blood. Distant, discordant music rose and fell, warped and strange. Down. Where? Below the studios. Below the city. The disc flared brightly, illuminating desperate graffiti scratched onto the brass walls. The frame, Reel 666, Find Gloria. The elevator slowed abruptly with a jarring clang. The gates rattled open. Callie stepped out into a cavernous, forgotten underground soundstage. Crumbling, Roman columns loomed in the gloom. Dusty spotlights hung askew. And directly ahead, illuminated by a single, flickering work lamp, sat a colossal film projector, its reels taller than she was, spinning slowly, silently. Threaded through it wasn't celluloid, but shimmering strands of pure, twisting light, the same impossible colors that had bled into her desert sky. This wasn't an escape. It was the source. The projector hummed, and the light pulsed like a heartbeat. A figure emerged from behind the massive machine. Not a static man. An old woman, draped in faded chiffon scarves that seemed woven from twilight itself. Her face was deeply lined, but her eyes, sharp and impossibly blue, held the fierce intelligence of Gloria Swanson in her prime. She studied Callie, her gaze lingering on the humming disc in her hand. Nick's gambit, she rasped, her voice surprisingly strong, echoing slightly in the vast space. She gestured to the projector's whirling light strands. They call this the Lumina Core. Mayer controls it, controls us. It spins the stories, traps the souls. She touched a trembling hand to one shimmering strand. A fragmentary image flickered. Valentino mid-tango, forever frozen. He feeds on the drama, the glamour, the pain. Her eyes snapped back to Callie. You're unspun. Real. You break the frame. She pointed a bony finger towards a heavy iron door, rusted shut, half hidden behind a fallen plaster gargoyle. That leads to the archives, the raw footage. The truth. Before Callie could speak, a grating metallic screech echoed through the chamber. Steel vents high on the walls hissed open. Thick, amber gas billowed out, smelling sickly sweet like decaying orchids. Studio gas. Containment. The old woman, Gloria, coughed violently, stumbling back. Go, she gasped, pulling a tarnished key from her scarves and thrusting it at Callie. Find the gate reel. Before. Her words dissolved into choking coughs as the gas swirled thicker, obscuring the projector's glow. The disk in Callie's hand pulsed erratically, its light dimming against the encroaching fog. The iron door. The archives. The truth. It was the only path left. Callie jammed Gloria's key into the door's rusted lock, shoulder slamming against the cold metal as the gas curled around her ankles, stinging her eyes. The lock groaned, then gave way with a protesting shriek of metal. The door swung open onto impenetrable darkness just as figures clad in biohazard suits materialized at the chamber's entrance, their lenses glowing violet in the gloom. She plunged into the archives, pulling the heavy door shut behind her with a final, echoing boom. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. And the faint scent of decaying celluloid. Absolute blackness swallowed Callie whole. The disk flickered weakly, revealing only inches of crumbling brick floor at her feet. She moved by touch alone, fingertips brushing cold metal shelves stacked impossibly high. The air hung heavy and utterly still, tasting of vinegar and dust, the decay of a million forgotten stories. Distantly, she felt rather than heard a low, resonant hum vibrating through the soles of her boots. Mayor's Tower, pulsing far above. Shelves groaned under the weight of countless film canisters, cold metal cylinders labeled in peeling paint. Gable's regret, outtakes, Harlow's last laugh, scene 17 alt. Garbo's tears, unused take. The sheer volume pressed in, a physical weight of curated sorrow and discarded moments. The disc flared briefly, illuminating a narrow aisle ahead choked with cobwebs. Something skittered in the darkness above. She pressed on, the silence amplifying the frantic thud of her own heart. Where was the gate reel? Footsteps echoed softly behind her. Too soft. Too precise. Not human. They were inside the archives. Callie froze, pressing herself against a shelf stacked with canisters labeled, "A Stairs Missteps." The footsteps paused. A thin beam of violet light sliced through the darkness, sweeping methodically across the aisle she'd just vacated. Static men. Hunting. She held her breath. The light lingered, probing. Then it clicked off. Silence returned, deeper than before. Slowly, she slid deeper into the archives, guided solely by the disk's faint, intermittent pulse. The shelves grew taller, the aisles narrower. Labels became stranger, more fragmented. Lost Laughter Fragment 7B, Crawford's Fury, Raw Feed, Valentino's Final Breath, Source Material. The air grew colder, biting. Finally, the disk flared brighter, steadier. Ahead stood a solitary, ancient vault door, unlike the shelves. It was forged from black iron, riveted like a submarine hatch, and utterly unmarked. Frost feathered its surface. The air around it hummed with a different resonance, deeper, older than Mayer's hum. This wasn't just another reel. The disk strained towards it like a compass needle finding true north. The gate reel. She reached out, fingertips brushing the freezing metal. A spark leapt from the disk to the vault. The lock mechanism began to glow with intricate, shifting blue sigils. The sigils pulsed, bathing Callie's face in cold light. She glanced back. 2 pairs of violet lenses glowed in the distant gloom, advancing steadily. No time. She slammed the humming disc against the center sigil. Metal groaned. Ancient gears ground to life deep within the vault door, shedding flakes of rust and frost. Ice cracked as the heavy bolts retracted one by one with echoing clangs. The door itself began to swing inwards, ponderously slow, revealing not darkness, but a blinding, chaotic swirl of fractured light and distorted sound, screams, laughter, gunfire, music all warped together. The gate reel wasn't stored here. The vault was the gate reel, a physical tear in Ethereal Hollywood's fabric. The static men broke into a silent sprint, their crackling hands outstretched. Callie didn't hesitate. She threw herself through the opening, into the maelstrom of light and noise, the disk blazing like a dying star in her fist. The heavy vault door slammed shut behind her with a final, deafening clang of finality, sealing the hunters out. or sealing her in. Reality dissolved into pure, screaming sensation. She tumbled through a kaleidoscope of shattered scenes. A desert sunset bleeding into a glittering ballroom floor, a wrench clattering onto marble beside a dropped champagne flute, the scent of grease mingling violently with gardenias and cordite. Faces flickered past. Gable snarling, Rogers spinning, Garbo weeping, all fragmented, unreal. Gravity vanished. Time stuttered. The disk's hum faltered, then surged wildly, trying to anchor her. Below her feet, a flickering image stabilized momentarily. Her own dusty truck, parked stubbornly under the vast, real desert sky. Home. Hope flared. She willed herself towards it, straining against the chaotic currents tearing at her limbs. The desert scene shimmered, beckoning, solidifying like an oasis in the storm. She stretched out a desperate hand. Her fingertips brushed gritty sand, hot and blessedly real.